Welcome to the CrossRoad Diner, that place where your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction. Hey, everybody, Steve McCurdy, and who's this guy over here?
John Burnett. It's great to be here in the corner booth at the
CrossRoad Diner. So John and I have semantic battles, which he calls something else. He doesn't like the conflict aspect of that, and I do.
Not amiss to conflict. I have people that think I chase conflict. I'm like, no, I'm just not afraid of a good debate.
And you love to pick a nit with the best of them. So, so the one that we're talking about today is, what do I want? You know, I don't think there's a more important question that you can ask to get you an insight into yourself and what's happening in your life and the things that you might want to change as you discover what your mission is. Would you argue with that, John?
No, I might, just the semantics of it. I think the beauty of this discussion is that last week, the first thing that we were looking at, kind of our North Star, or, our high noon, if you want to call it that, was our desired state. What is our desired state? What is our desired outcome? What is it we are shooting for? The vision that we see out there. And what we're talking about when you say what you want is like, we're kind of saying that. What is the desired state? What is the vision you want to move towards? That's going to move closer to being on mission.
And a lot of people would say that they don't have what they want. And that's why they're going through coaching. That's why they're, trying to do self-improvement. It's because they want to get closer to what they want. But one of the arguments that my coaches have always given me is, if you want to know what you want, look at what you have. The fruit that you have in your life is the tree you are growing. And there's something about that you want, or you would change it drastically. And you go, well, I am at that place right now. I just don't, I got to figure out what the desired state is because I don't like this one. You had some other examples of that.
I think, first of all, I think this is great because what you're really speaking into is helping flesh out, how do we define our desired state? And step one, I think you've just given us, really, is step one is recognize what fruit you are producing. Because to your point, what I'm currently producing shows the desired state that I'm currently moving towards.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about this is that a lot of people are going, well, yeah, I'm moving towards a job and a 9-to-5, a 9-to-5 career in the same job, moving up the ladder. But I'm stepping back and going, that's where my desired state was at some point, because I took the job for whatever reason. I started down that road for whatever reason, and we all have reasons behind that. But now I'm going, I don't want this. This isn't really the desired state I want. I'm miserable. I'm not getting to spend time with the family. And so step one is look at the fruit, and we get to see what it is. So
let's role play that for a second, John. You're telling me that you're in a position and you don't want to be there. Why? Why don't you want to be where you are? The choices you're making are putting you where you are. Why do you want to change?
I have found myself without key core elements in my life that I desire. For instance, maybe I have had children. Right. And when I chose this direction, when I made the decision to go this direction, when I decided on it, I made that way too obvious. I didn't have kids, but now I have kids. So I'm like, I want to coach their little league, or if I'm a mom, I want to spend more time with my baby. There's a bunch of different reasons that as we go through life, our desired state changes because our lives change. Nothing is stagnant. Nothing stays the same, but we feel trapped in our current desired state. And so we keep making the same decisions. And, one of the definitions, I don't know if it's true or just, sounds really good, of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different outcomes.
Yeah.
Until something changes, you're not going to get a different outcome.
Well, and I agree completely, but I would suggest that the reason that you're doing what you're doing is because it's what you know how to do, and you can predict that outcome. You know the minimums that you can get out of that. But if you say to me, I don't want this, I'm going to say, but if you're responsible for your choices and your decisions, this is the fruit that's being produced. This is the tree that's being grown. If you've decided that you don't want that you want a different state, you have to do different things. You just made that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And they're going to probably be more uncomfortable, because what it turns out that you want is, I want to get up in the morning and make a decision easily and do the thing that I need to do and not have to think about it, not have to work on it so hard, because that's the fruit that you're getting right now. If you want to get a higher state, you're going to have to sacrifice some of that comfort, maybe all of that comfort. Yeah. You and I have certainly found that.
Well, and I think speaking of that is kind of, I'll call it step 2 and step 3, is when you're trying to define and see the clarity in your current state, your current desired state, because this is the fruit you're producing. One of the ways you can do that is go and look at your bank account, because what we care about, what matters to us, is very evident in where we spend our money. So to move to a different desired state, I'll give you a great example. I went nomad almost a year ago. To go nomad, I'm going to have to buy a plane ticket and maybe not spend money on a place to stay. And so I've got to look at the money that I was currently spending on a lease and decide, right, is that if I have a desired state of freedom, but I'm anchored because I have a multi-year lease and I have an opportunity to let that go, I can look and see where my money is going. And I can see really quickly that if that money is freed up that I'm spending on a lease, a mortgage, utilities, all that stuff, and I have that back because I no longer have a lease, I no longer have a house, I no longer have those obligations, that money is significant. Now it's different, and people are looking at me like I got 3 heads sometimes, but man, the freedom that came with that. But one of the first things I did when I desired change in my desired outcome, my desired state, was I looked at my bank account. And then the third thing, and let me stop and just say, do you agree with that? Is that a clear kind of step to you?
Yeah. You look at what you're spending money on, and you'll know an awful lot about what you are deciding. And if it's not what you want, there's questions you got to ask yourself. Now, when you decided to go nomad and you said, hey, I'm going to get all this lease money back, what that lease money gave you was a roof and the freedom to not have to make that decision all the time or look for it. You traded that freedom for no idea where the roof is going to be at this time or that time. You've got to take that responsibility back and know that part of every day is figuring out where am I going to be and when. A lot of people are going, that's the 3-head part, John. I don't want to have to do that. But you did. And that was a trade that you were willing to make, but you had to be conscious that that was worth the sacrifice of not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely, almost a year now looking back, I can tell you one of my favorite decisions I've ever made, because I do have such amazing freedom and I have experienced life in a whole different way that a lot of people will never experience. And it does come back to a risk factor. But I've got a friend I had lunch with yesterday, and he planned his exit for 7 years.
Wow.
He made a decision on what he wanted to do different, sat down, came into agreement with his wife, and they started moving towards going, and they sold their house. It's actually under contract, and they spent the last 6 weeks at her sister's house, actually here in the Dallas area, taking care of their nieces and nephews and a newborn baby for her sister. And they have the freedom to do that for as long as they want to. Next Monday, they're going to head to Kansas because they've never been to Kansas. Not because of any magic that's in Kansas, just we've never been there. Let's go to Kansas for a while. and they created that a very different way. I'm a more of a shoot first, ask questions later kind of thing. Ask forgiveness versus permission. That ought to be a podcast in and of itself. Which I'll make a note of that, by the way.
Make a note. Put that on your list.
Yes. Hasn't always ended well for me, but it's kept my life from being boring. That is for dang sure. But so the bank account, I think, is kind of a critical thing we can look at to see what really matters to us. And I can tell you, I don't have a TV. I haven't had an internet bill. I haven't had cable. Those are decisions I made for the choice of this freedom. Now, what's funny is I house sit, and they almost always have all of those luxuries that. And I still don't turn on TVs very rarely because it's just not part of where I want to focus my attention. I'm super, super people focused now, which is another big choice that I got to make, that I can interact with people the way I want to now versus the way I do in a job. But the third kind of decision maker that we can look at, kind of third step of defining, helping you to see exactly what your current desired state is your daytimer or your calendar, maybe the most generic way to talk about it now. The app that you keep up with where you spend your time. And I will argue that this is third in line, but by far the most important, because it is the most limited resource that any of us have. It is the most precious resource. Forget about money, forget about homes and trinkets and trash and cars. Our time is limited, and how we spend it is truly mission critical. The things we talked about a few weeks ago, the things that people regret, almost all of them tie back to where they spent their time.
Yep. It is the most universal currency and the most universal evidence of your commitment to choice. So this notion of, if you want to know what you want, take a look at what you're getting right now and what you're investing your time and energy in. For many people, that's like, no, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. No, you own your life. I love that John and I are doing this together, because John's a classic example that you can do something. I think you've told us this once before, and I'll maintain your privacy if you haven't, but there was a person in your life who told you can't do that.
Yes.
And in your own way, tell that story.
Yeah, no, I love this person with all my heart, and it is my father. It's my dad. And we all have people that a great book called The Dream Giver calls them border bullies. And they're the ones that, as you pursue your dreams, start telling you why you can't do it, or what you're pursuing isn't possible. And in this particular case, I called my folks, who are, anybody who knows my mom and dad know that, like, their mission in life is the happiness of everybody they come in contact with.
Right.
Inside the family dynamics can be a little bit different, but they've both done things all through my life to encourage me and push me forward. This particular case, I hit them with the curveball, right? I am going to give up my lease and go nomad. That concept is never, they're 80, about to be 85. That is, like, I don't even know what that means. Right. I said, well, what it means for me is I'm not going to have a home anymore. I'm going to stay with friends, family, and I'm going to house sit all over the world. And the first thing, I should say the second thing after what does that mean, that my dad shared was, you can't do that. And I was like taken back. I'm like, well, that's pretty direct. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't do it? You can't do that.
Here's what I'm going to do. No.
Yeah. Like, you can't do that. You have to have a place to call home. You have to have a place to go home to at the end of the night. And I said, I will. It just won't be the place I currently am paying a lease for. It will be a place I'm house sitting for. It'll be my cousin Mickey's. It'll be the person I met on an airplane. Yeah, it's gonna be my friend that I met at the speaker lab, because I came and stayed at your house, Brother Steve, within 3 or 4 months after I went from an island off of Puerto Rico to Valdosta, Georgia, staying with my new friend Steve McCurry. That's now I have freedom. I have freedom that I never had before. And it is not holding me back. It's giving me more freedom.
Right. And so my point about that is, we limit ourselves, and the border bullies help maintain status quo because we don't want change. We're afraid of change because we like the discomfort that we currently have. We have evidence we can survive. What we want is to go through the day comfortably and have the next day be better by magic. And what we have to do is make the next day better through our choices and our decisions. So if we want something different, we have to do something different. Now, you are an excellent example of how different things can be. Your dad,
example, depending on your point of view.
Say again?
Or an insane example, depending on your point of view.
I'm not here to judge. Now, I think I would fight the battle, and I think you'd support it, that your dad was trying to protect you from discomfort.
Yes.
That he did not understand how you could make that choice and have security and comfort and those kinds of things. You did not share that fear. And so you and he were in a place where you justified to him your comfort and his concern being unnecessary, because here's what I'm going to do and here's how it's going to work. He had never processed success, life, good with homelessness. And you are not homeless. You just don't know what the home is going to be until you get there, which is an incredible step of faith. So that's kind of another thing. When you're setting off into an area that you don't know, you have to have faith in something. Now, how that manifests in your life, some have a spiritual faith, others have faith in themselves and their resources and in their ingenuity. But you just have to have faith that anything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And it takes a lot to kill you. You know, you might be embarrassed, being broke is the same thing with, people, in the Depression, people were jumping out of windows because they were broke and embarrassed.
Yeah.
Ending their lives over a state that they were just unfamiliar with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also out of that, some folks went, okay, I got to let that go and pick a new direction.
Well, and that's such a great point. I mean, I think this may be a great transition to another podcast, but this key of defining your current state by, one, looking at the fruit you're currently producing.
Yep.
2, looking at your bank account, see where your financial resources are currently going towards. And 3, looking at your calendar and find out where you're spending that time.
Exactly.
Currently, so you know exactly where you're at. And it is mission critical to know where you are, right? I don't even know if they have malls anymore because I hadn't been one in so long. But if you go to the mall, they used to have these big kiosks that said, it's a map of the mall and it said, you are here, right? If you're at Yellowstone hiking, you get a, you are here. It's really important to know where you are to determine to get to where you want to be. So I love this, I love the focus prop that you shared with us last week. And I love this kind of idea of fleshing out this first reality of where you are and the steps that we can take to have clarity about that.
Good. Now, last week we ended up saying we were going to talk about the difference between decisions and choices. And we've tap danced around that, but John and I came down on, different places there. I have a coach that I have invited to join us. And he's the one who kind of first raised this nuance with me. And I'm going to try to get him to join us and walk both John and I through that. I can't say it's going to be for next week, but it's on the agenda. And all of this stuff is kind of, as you can see, very, very blended. There are very, very subtle connective tissues between all of these ideas, the goal of which is to get you to know who you are and who you are now and who you want to be and become. And I'm going to say to you, you are who you want to be. You've got some things that are in the way of being that, but it's there. or you wouldn't have the desire.
That's good. That's good. Well, Steve, I think this is what you have so brilliantly put together with the CrossRoad Diner, specifically with CrossRoad Coaching back in the corner booth of the CrossRoad Diner, that what has really taken place, what you have gotten crystal clear about, is you are helping people navigate change.
That's it. Thank you, brother. That's my mission. My mission is helping people navigate change. Yeah. And we'll give you some more navigational tips next time. Maybe it will be with my friend Andy, and maybe it will be one that John and I dream up. But in any event, join us on Monday releases from the CrossRoad Diner, from the back booth. And I'm going to go have some biscuits and gravy. What are you up to, John?
Hey, I'm going to go run. I need to work off some biscuits and gravy.
I do too, but I would rather have more. Okay. And that's your song. It's always about more. Until next time, from the CrossRoad Diner in the back booth, I'm Steve McCurdy.
And I am John Burnett.
And we wish you a really great week. Talk to you later. One of the coaching things that John and I do for free is an introductory visit to talk about where you are and what the struggles are you might be having and help point you in a direction. Just drop a line to steve@thecrossroaddiner.com. Until next time, this is the place your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction.